Also, real quick, if you guys haven't grabbed a raffle ticket, he's got them there in the back. We're going to be raffling away a circuit mono station at the end of this. So, yeah, make sure to grab one. Oh, and on top of that, there's a bunch of like these packets. Feel free to grab them too. There's cable ties, sticker, free pen. You can never have enough cable ties. They're kind of scattered around if you see them, but they're all free for the taking. Grab as many as you want too. Cool. Awesome. Cool. All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Enrique Martinez, the Novation Technology Evangelist. Crazy name. You could just call me the synth guy for the U.S. And yeah, we're here to talk about the circuit mono station, kind of what it is, what it can do, creative ways of using it, and basically a bunch of its features, as well as the new update, the 1.2, which adds a lot of functionality to the synthesizer itself. Are majority of you guys anybody familiar with circuit or circuit mono station at all? No, just a little bit here and there. Cool. All right, perfect. So, what the circuit monostation is, it's a paraphonic analog synthesizer. So, monostation, you can go ahead and already ignore that. And what a paraphonic synth is basically it allows you to play two notes utilizing two oscillators, but they share the same signal path. So, if your amplifier is in the middle of its cycle and you play a second note, it's not going to have its own attack. It's just going to be loud wherever the amp envelope cycle is. But what makes circuit monostation so cool is that you have two separate sequencers that allow you to sequence the second oscillator independently from the first, but still sharing the same signal path. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to go ahead and put in a couple notes. The way it works, if I press play, you can see the white square right here is basically the playhead in a 16-step sequence. You got your sequencer down below and your notes across the top. I can say, oh, I like this note. I can put it down different spots in the sequence and it'll just play it. Or I can just hit record. So the cool thing here is, again, if I turn up the second oscillator, I can then go to the second oscillator here, and you can see that the sequence is now blank. So if I press some notes, oh, I have it on a bypass. So then I can maybe say I want to tie in 2 bars, right? In the pattern section, you have 16 different patterns or 16 bars for oscillator 1, 8 for oscillator 2, and then 8 for the mod sequencer, which we'll get to in a second. So I got these 2 bars tied together and a single bar for oscillator 1. I'm going to go back to note mode, hit record, and then just lay something in. Let's see. You can even go and transpose that. You got some cool functions like you can have oscillator 2 bypass the filter while oscillator 1's still going through it. Or if you do some weirder stuff, like let's go to another blank 16-step sequence, I can say here I want to play this note, there, there, and there. I can then go to pattern settings, and in the pattern settings, I can do a bunch of different things. I can change the rate at which it's synced to the clock. I can change its play direction, forward, backwards, ping pong, or random. And I can even change the start point and the end point of the sequence. So right now we have, I can just say end here. Or maybe I wanted to do 6. All the while, oscillator 1 is still in its 16-step sequence. Again, focusing on patterns, I can say duplicate this pattern to here, and then I can go here and go to edit it. I can then just hit shift and mutate, which will then take the notes that I've entered and rearrange them. Maybe now I can just tie those 2 patterns together. Maybe set one to random. crazy thing here is like it's really quick at writing patterns and doing a bunch of different things. And the cool thing is oscillator 1 sends out on MIDI channel 1, oscillator 2 is on MIDI channel 2, and the mod sequencer is basically dependent on what it's doing. So you can have it do basically just CV values out. And to do that, I can say shift in sessions, and I can choose what the CV and gate outputs are listening to. So I can have it mirror oscillator 1, mirror oscillator 2, or just be its own independent sequence as opposed to listening to the others. So what this now does is if I go to note mode and mod sequencer, let me turn this up. This is now what we're listening to is my modular. And because everything's in key and in scale, as long as you have your oscillators in tune, in this case I'm using the Basimilis Territas alter, which is just out of frame, you can then play some stuff in for modular on top of this. So we have this going. And then all those same pattern settings apply to this too. I can then go ahead and say maybe end here, be random at 30 seconds. Something crazy. Maybe happens. Or turn down oscillator 2. So basically what the monostation is it's a really crazy sequencer, internally and both externally, because again, all this stuff can be used to control a VST over USB or using 5-pin MIDI to control another synthesizer, maybe an OCOS because you have the CV and gate. You also have an auxiliary CV out of the back too, which is a destination in the mod matrix. You got 4 sources, your envelope, your LFO, your velocity, as well as the sequencer itself. And the way the sequencer works is basically in the mod sequence, you use the velocity values on specific steps to send out basically a CV value to any of the destinations within the mod matrix. So it's almost like a 4th sequencer, but I'm gonna restrict myself from saying that even though I just said it. But so with all that aside, you can do a bunch of crazy things like that. There's even audio input as well, which you can run external things. So I have this little drum loop kind of just chilling here. Let's see what this sounds like. If I press play on the monostation, I have basically 5-pin out into here. And let me turn down the modular. This is circuit. This is how the drum loop sounds now, just by itself, not going through monostation. Cool, so I'm gonna unplug it and then run it straight into the monostation. And then turn this up. So what it's doing is, again, relying on the signal path of oscillator 1 to open up the amp envelope in order to hear the sound. So why that's cool is because monostation is clocking circuit, and circuit's playing a drum loop at the same tempo as the monostation. I can then sync, for example, the LFO to tempo and have that be moving the filter of the drum loop. Or you could be a little bit more modest and actually turn down the gain of the actual input and just have it be a little bit more of a cleaner sound. Maybe give it a little distortion. And the cool thing here is if we go and do pattern settings, I'm going to just set it to 4 steps. Take down the amp envelope and reshape kind of the drum sounds itself. Or you can do weird stuff like take a couple steps out and create almost a new rhythm. Or set that to random. And then maybe send the envelope to the filter, affecting the drums. It's just like a really good audio destroyer. I like Yeah, it's really good. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's cool because basically it'll sync to whatever. Even if you had this plugged into like Ableton or a DAW over USB, you press play on your computer, mono station starts going. You send audio out of that into the mono station to give it a little bit more warmth because it's an all analog signal path. Back into your DAW, maybe change the way the shape is a little bit, and you're good to go. And then on top of that, you still got a synthesizer in here that you can then mess around with, or the mod sequencer, which you can use to control a semi-modular synth or a Eurorack synthesizer, whatever it may be. The power of the monostation's pretty crazy. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife, similar to Circuit, where you can kind of always find some sort of a realm for it, depending on what your setup currently is. The other cool thing is, if I go back to the other session that we were messing around with, which is this one right here, let me go ahead and take Circuit back into the mixer itself and press play here. Right. So I'm going to just go ahead and hit record. So the cool thing with monostation is everything is automatable. You can just hit record and record the automation on everything. So if we make this super plucky, let's go ahead and add a bunch of steps. Whatever these notes are, we're all in scale, so it doesn't really matter. It should sound good. So I can just hit record and record the decay time. So check this. Then you can see with the LED feedback, it shows you what I just recorded. Then I want to record the filter. So maybe some resonance. Maybe I want to record how much the envelope is affecting the filter cutoff, just the depth within the mod matrix. You can even do that. So now if I turn the filter down, you can kind of hear it jumping. The other crazy thing is not only can you record basically anything on here, you can even record the audio input, the noise level, the fine tune, the coarse tune of what the oscillators are. You can even record the automation of you selecting patches per step. So on mine, I have a couple of patches here, just like a kick drum, snare, hat, and an open hat. Again, all analog. So if I press play, I've now selected that patch, but I can go back to this patch, and I can just hit record and record. So now it's playing that rhythm, but with different patches per step. And the cool thing is, if I hold down Shift within the patch menu, it'll hold down the note values and then record just the patch change, but keep all the actual sequence there itself. So like, to demonstrate this a little better is if I were to go and say, let's just record myself a little kick. We'll say here, da 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 da, right, easy. Go to patches. The reason I hit the kick again is just to lock that into the sequence. So then I can say, and then maybe a little up hat. So then if I were to go and play some notes, like let's just say this, right? I can see that this is that step. I can duplicate that within all the other blank spaces, and then I can go and edit what note that's actually playing. Again, record some automation. It's just like a weird way to kind of come up with these super random rhythms and whatnot. It's just that's part of the 1.2 update, was the ability to record your different patches per step. And then if you want to go and say, oh, this kick, I want to change the pitch of it. But for all of them, you just go to there, you see what patch it's on, you just hit save and save again, and it'll now save that patch to a different setting. So. But of course, we got the recorded automation of the filter on top of all of that. Within that, I mean, there's a lot. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I've missed. I mean, the mod sequencer is pretty crazy with the modular setup. Like, I think with monostation coming out after Circuit, a lot of people were left wondering why there's no samples and why there's not two synthesizers and why it's a little bit more expensive than Circuit itself. But when you compare the two, they really go hand in hand together really well. Circuit can handle a lot of your sample capabilities because it's digital. You can put your own samples in it, your own drum tracks, and you got 2 digital synths based off of the Mini Nova, the Nova synth engine. 6 notes of polyphony each, especially for sequencing, it's really powerful. But then if you have the mono station doing something like super solid or super simple, it's a really good combination, especially with anything else. Like I used to use the bass station a lot, and this is easily replaced that, because in a live situation, that would take up a sequencer track on whatever I was using, and it'd be another page that I would have to jump to then edit. Where this, it has its own sequencer. I could just let this run in time with everything and have it do its own thing. It's in scale, everything. It's good to go. You know what? Let's go ahead and put this to practice. I'm going to go here and here. Let's see what this is. So this is a bass patch I always use. Just kind of sharp, straight to the point. Let's go and throw a little kick drum in here. And turn that up, of course. Here, I'll set this up a little bit. Cool. So same with the whole sample or patch per step. You can do the same thing, basically selecting different samples per step on the circuit. So I can go up 2 bars. Now we can tune that down. And then I can just say, give myself a little swing so it's not so stale. Throw a sample in there. So. I don't know, it's just a fun, like, I'll use it for like solid bass lines or solid lead lines. And sure, you can get really weird with a lot of the like separate sequencing of the separate oscillator doing its own thing. Like in this track here, you could possibly go and do something like that, but you'll find like a lot of really good sweet spots on the circuit mono station that's really fun to use. And then just the fact that it's kind of like doing its own thing and you don't really have to worry about it is another great feature to have. Another cool thing, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with like ring modulators or whatnot. There's one on here too, which is really cool. Again, because you can sequence the 2 oscillators independently from one another, you can come up with a lot of weird sounds. Me personally, I'll run this into like a Digitact or an MPC, and I'll find like the sweet spot between 2 sounds. So let's go ahead and like try to find one now. So this is the ring mod. I can say oscillator 2. You'll see that these LEDs turn green, showing that I'm now editing oscillator 2. So if I hit these 2 together, I got purple up top and green across the bottom. That means I'm playing the notes for the oscillator 2 as well as the notes for oscillator 1 on the same page, basically. So I can say, so this is creating the ring between the 2. So I can go up an octave. Or I can just go ahead and fiddle around with the oscillator tuning itself. That's kind of cool. We can make that a little more bell-like. Cool, I'm done with this. Maybe send the envelope to the filter as well. Kind of FM-y almost. Let's try and record something in here. Go to patterns, duplicate that over once. Go to the second bar. Mute sub's always going to listen to oscillator 1. If I change the range, it'll change the range of the sub. It's always, I think it's an octave below. Maybe send an LFO to the pitch of oscillator 2, but because it's a ring mod, it shouldn't really change the initial pitch of the entire sound. Or you could even sync the two oscillators together. Oh, that's kind of cool right there. So I'm saying, like, just something simple, solid like that, it really gets the job done. But I mean, as far as those functions with the ability to sequence other stuff, it even has a clock input, clock output for actual sync. So if you're running something like a pocket operator and have had issues trying to sync that to Ableton or something, MIDI into here, clock out into that, you're set to go. Run the audio into here and just kind of mangle it up a bit. Everything's in sync. CV out, gate out, auxiliary CV out. Again, the auxiliary CV is basically a destination in the mod matrix, which you can send any of the 4 sources to it independently from one another, positive or negative. So you don't have to choose one or the other. You can say, I want the envelope positive, the LFO negative, the sequencer just a hair, and no velocity. And all 3 of those affect the output of the auxiliary CV, which you then just send to whatever you want. Again, MIDI out, MIDI in, audio in. Got the headphone out in the front. It's not battery powered like the circuit, just because it takes a lot more juice to run all this stuff, especially with the pre-filter distortion and the post-filter distortion. And the sequencer itself, which is a crazy main brain. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. Oh, I guess this is worth mentioning. Another cool feature on that we've added in the update is the ability to uncouple the LFO's re-triggering from the basically every time you press the key, it would restart the cycle of the LFO, so you couldn't do really long LFOs without hitting another note. So we've added that. And then what's the second shift, Taylor? Do you know? That, I always forget what it is. Yeah, I can't remember what it is. But it must have not been that important. If I don't remember it, because everything else I remember. The other cool thing too is like the clock output. It's not just stuck to 16ths. You can actually change the rate at which it's basically divided or multiplied from the original clock point. Receives program changes, sends program changes. I mean, it does a bunch of stuff. Or is there envelope trigger? Ah, yeah. Okay, cool. Right. So the notes will slide into one another or not. And that also comes with the glide feature, which I completely forgot to mention. Basically, glide, similar to portamento, you can set it per step. So I can say from this step, I want it to slide that long. From left to right, it's basically like a certain amount of milliseconds up to, I think, about a second or two of how long the slide will take to reach the next note. But that's just for that step. I can then go here and turn slide off, and maybe here make it a quicker slide. So you can have different slides per part. And even with the mod sequencer, where each velocity, here, I'll just show you guys. It's way easier than just talking nonstop. So here, I'll play in a couple notes. Oh, actually, yeah, you know, I'll do that. Cool. Filters down. I can say mod sequencer, velocity, full on the first step, maybe low on the 5th step, 9th step, there. So I can say sequencer, go to the filter. So now those values are being sent to the filter. Easy. But if I hit shift and mod sequence, it says smooth. I'm not sure if you can see it. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. Smooth. And that's basically going to smooth those values out. You know, so it's almost like an LFO designer. You can make it kind of more step and hold or sample and hold style, or you can kind of smooth it out and kind of create these weird forever moving almost LFOs within it. And then of course that also applies to, like, if you set it to random, it's now smoothing out between these random chosen values that you've set in there. But I'd say that's pretty much about it for the most part. Let's go ahead and open up the floor to questions. Does anybody have any questions about the mono station? Yeah. Easy. So in patches, if I hit patches here, we have this page of 32. You can see that the octaves kind of lit up. You have 64 patches you can save. Say this one, that's garbage. I just want to hit clear, boom, and now it's a blank empty patch. Yeah. And then on top of that, all these patches, you plug it in and you go onto components, novationcomponents.com. You can back up your entire mono station, that's sessions, the songs, all your patches, and then you can share those or just like download them itself, or like say you got a show in Australia or something, don't take yours out, borrow one over there and download your mono station down onto whatever one you're borrowing at that time. Or say like yours breaks or you lose it or spill, I don't know, Diet Pepsi on it or something and it's toasted, you still have all your stuff backed up. Yeah. Yeah. So basically you'll save it to the cloud. The reason we have it on the web MIDI is basically so you don't have to keep taking up space and files on your computer, but you can always download it as a sysx file. Yeah, and that's independent. So you can be like, I want to download everything, or I just want to download my patches, or maybe I made all these patches, but I want to download new sessions, or basically like the sessions and patterns, but keep the patches the same. You can do it kind of like modular in a way, where you can choose what you want. Any other questions? Another? Right. So the sub oscillator. I'm going to go to sessions, go to another blank one. Basically, sub oscillator is always going to follow oscillator 1, so this is without it. If I turn it up, oh, it's a little. And that follows even the chorus tuning. So one thing I'll do is I'll turn up the sub, and then I'll turn up oscillator 2. That way I can kind of create a bigger gap between just an octave lower. So that way it just lets me, oh, right. Yeah, I think it's a triangle. Yeah, pretty sure it's a triangle. Yeah, and then yeah, you got pre-filter distortion, post-filter distortion, so 2 separate distortion circuits, 3 different distortion types as well for the post-filter. The pre-filter one's always the same. You got band pass, low pass, high pass, your slope 12 dB or 24 dB, and then the bypass, which basically lets either the noise bypass the filter, oscillator 2 bypass the filter, or both, or none. Yeah, tempo, swing, you can see it here. It's kind of Tetris style, 134, 108, 89. We didn't have a screen, so this is the best we could do. And then if you hold down shift and move that, you're now changing your swing. So you can go up to 80 or I think it's 20, which is like negative swing, which nobody should use. It sounds crazy. Dude, prove it. Here, we'll try it. Whoa, I destroyed that patch. So then swing it. 80. Here, let's give it some reference. Right, and then I'll go negative. It's like tripping over itself. That's kind of cool. Cool, cut it, next. Album's done. But yeah, you can save 32 sessions on here, and in each session has all the patterns, all your patches as well. So say you choose this patch, which right now sounds terrible. But if I were to save this to the session, that patch is now saved within that session. So if we go to another one and choose that same patch, it's going to be what it was originally. But if we go back to that session, it'll be the way we last left it. which is also another cool way. Because say you do make that, and for whatever reason you really like that sound, you can go into components and say save this patch to my computer, and then you can then upload that patch to all the rest of them. Yeah. Cool, cool, cool. So what mutate does is basically it's going to take the pattern that you've created. For example, this. I got to fix this. Here, let me do this. So in patterns, what I like to do is I'll duplicate this. Like say this pattern's really cool. I can say duplicate from here and paste it there, there, and there. I'll go to this one. And it's going to take all the notes that I've entered in right now and then just rearrange them. It's not going to add new ones. It's not going to take them out of key or anything like that. So it's kind of like a fail safe. It'll always kind of keep you where you need to be. But so we have this. Oh, crazy. I have it set to random. My bad. Cool. So then if I hit shift and mutate, I'll just keep hitting it until I find a new one. That one's cool. Then I'll go to the next pattern, mutate this one as well. Maybe move it down an octave. Cool. And then go to the next pattern. And mutate this one again. Down an octave. So now I've essentially just wrote 4 different patterns, all using the same notes, all in key for the same song. And then you can just go to pattern, say play from 1 to 4. And it'll just go from there into the next one. That one's ping pong. Now this one's 16. This one ping pong again, so 32. And then 16. And then back to that one. So the mutate's really fun. Like if you have an idea like this is cool, but it could be a little different, just copy the pattern, duplicate it, and then again you got 16 bars which you can tie all of them to create really, really long patterns, which is also another cool thing to do. With other Novation boxes, it's good. I mean, again, it's like pretty much all standalone. It's all analog up across the top with circuit sequencer attached to the bottom, except monophonic versus the 6 notes of polyphony each that you get. But yeah, it's always waiting to receive clock. It's always sending clock. It can send notes. It can also, you can turn that off. Receive notes, send notes. Again, oscillator 1's MIDI channel 1. Oscillator 2's MIDI channel 2. The mod sequence is, depending on what you set it to, can be the CVN gate, or it could even send out of, I think by default it sends MIDI channel 2, because I was playing synth 2 earlier with this. And that also all works over USB as well. So if you plug this in and are running Reactor or something like that, and you want a more hands-on feel to sequencing a plugin, you can do this. And at the same time, it's receiving clock from your DAW. So if you press play in your DAW, this will start moving in time, and then you can kind of get a better hands-on feel and start mutating that pattern and changing up silent or whatever it may be. Yeah. I want to say they do, but and they probably also receive CC as well, like to record automation and stuff within Ableton. I'm almost 99% sure that they do, and but they can't be changed because I know the circuit ones do as well, and they can't be changed either. Yes. So yeah, so in the demonstration that I did, I sent just some drum, like a simple drum track. You can even say that like I was running YouTube playing a song into MonoStation. So then what it does is it sends it through the signal path, which is the envelope, the pre-filter distortion, the filter, and the post-filter distortion, as well as the mixer. And the mixer has a separate gain, so you can really start like distorting it. And the reason it has that is because you can run like a guitar through here. I've ran a guitar and kind of created these weird wahs using like a bandpass and an LFO, which is really fun. So yeah, basically it runs it in there and it runs it through the signal path, but you can't bypass that. So you always have to make sure, like say you want to just use this as a pedal, you would always have to put a note down and have that play, but then just turn down oscillator 1 so you don't hear it, just so it's opening up the amp envelope or triggering the envelope itself. Yeah. Cool. No, so the mono station cannot sample. The mono station is all analog. So because of that, it cannot sample. It's just all analog up top with circuit sequencer down below. But the circuit can sequence or sample. You basically just drag and drop samples over USB onto any of the 64 pads that you have right here. And then basically, let me go to this one here. So all of these you can then take and start manipulating. Yeah, but the mono station cannot sample. Cool, guys. I know you guys want some free stuff. Let's get on to this raffle, maybe. Awesome. Cool, guys. Thank you guys so much for checking it out. Should I do I spin this thing? Everybody got a ticket?